We are living in the last days. It's extremely important to understand who the beast of the book of Revelation is and what is his image. To find out, we'll look into chapter 2 of the book of Daniel. In the second chapter of the book of Daniel, we discover that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has a dream about a great image of a man that troubles him. And the prophet Daniel is brought in to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Daniel points out that the interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream is for us living in the last days. That is identifying the beast and his image as seen in the book of Revelation. Daniel 2:28. There is a God in heaven that reveals secrets and makes known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Daniel 2:30. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall be made known the interpretation to the king. Putting verses 28 and 30 together, we see that the interpretation of the dream was for the sake of those living in these last days. Here is Daniel's interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Daniel 2:31 through 34. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest, till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. The second mentioned image represents the history of the permanent kingdoms of the world, all the way down to the end times kingdoms of the feet and toes, the iron and the clay, which are destroyed at Jesus' coming. We will identify these kingdoms. But for the purpose of this video, the most important thing to understand is that each of these heathen, ungodly kingdoms form a terrible image of a man. An ungodly man is the beast of Revelation. Babylon is the head of gold. The breast and arms of silver is Medo-Persia. The belly and thighs of brass is Greece. The legs of iron is Rome. And the feet and toes are the last kingdom on the earth, which comes out of this Roman Empire. Now let's move on to Daniel chapter 3, where we see King Nebuchadnezzar make an image to the first beast of his dreams. And he demands all people, nations, and tongues to worship this image of the first beast. Daniel 3, verses 1 and 4 through 6. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then a herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into a midst of a burning fiery furnace. Let's now take a look at the terrible beast image of ungodly man from the book of Daniel and compare it with the image of the beast from Revelation 13. Daniel 3, verse 5 and 6. At what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. We see here that the image of the first beast of the book of Daniel lines up with the beast in his image from the book of Revelation, chapter 13. Both require worship or the penalty of death. It's the same old story from the Garden of Eden, where you worship man or God. Let's also notice that the first terrible image of the beast of ungodly man is first segmented by nation, but the end times image of the beast is of all gold, indicating a united beast, bringing to mind the United Nations and a one world government, what Scripture calls Mystery Babylon. The image of the beast of Revelation 13 is ungodly man, united, or Mystery Babylon.